Hello everyone, welcome to another roster review. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and notifications bell in the corner over there so you know each time we release one of these videos and support the channel. Right then, let's get straight into it. So today we're going to look at David's Space Wolf list. He went to an RTT this past weekend called Bring Da Ruckus, and it was his first run out at a tournament with his Space Wolves. So we're going to have a look at the list he took, you know, in the 4 ways that we do, the army list, how it works, how we could tackle it, and then how we can improve it, because like we say, this was David's first run out with it, and he's looking to make it his regular tournament list, so he's going to want to see the improvements he can make. So first of all, I'm going to run you through the list. Let's have a quick look at what he took. The first thing to note is it was a Space Wolves successor, you know, not detachment, but army. The whole army was Space Wolves successors, and there were 2 detachments, but they were both the same successor chapter, and the reason for that is normally they get +1 to hit in combat, but with Born Heroes you get the same anyway. So David's taken Born Heroes as the first half of his custom chapter, so you get +1 to hit on the charge anyway. The only thing you're losing is the 3-inch heroic intervention on every unit, but you do have a stratagem that allows you to 6-inch heroically intervene with any 1 unit in your army. So it's not like you're losing heroic intervention completely. Your characters can still do it, and then any 1 unit in your army can do it 6 inches as well. So I don't think it's really worth having that extra heroic intervention. Instead, you could take Whirlwind of Rage, where every 6 you roll to hit in combat gives you an additional hit. Not an attack, an additional hit already. So no need to roll any hits with it. Basically, every 6 you roll to hit is 2 hits instead of 1. That's very big because, of course, in the Assault Doctrine, Space Wolves get exploding 6s anyway. So every time they roll a 6 to hit, it'll be 2 additional hits from battle round 3 onwards, or if you put a unit in the Assault Doctrine. So that's what he's got. It's Born Heroes and Whirlwind of Rage. First of all, he's got a Patrol detachment, which of course is free because his Warlord's in there. He's got a Captain with a Jump Pack, a Storm Shield, and a Thunder Hammer, and he has tooled him the hell up. He's a 180-point character. He's got the Chapter Master upgrade, which costs 40 points. He's got the Rights of War Warlord trait, and then he's paid a CP to give him another Warlord trait, which is the Hunter, so he can advance and charge. And then he's got the Armor of Rust because it's absolutely insane. Making people fight last at the moment in the game is amazing. On top of that, he's got a Primaris Lieutenant with a Mastercrafted Power Sword and Storm Shield. If you've got the other things that David's got in this list that you're about to see, then having a Chapter Master / Captain and also a Lieutenant in your army is just a no-brainer as well. You've got to do it. You've got to take it. He's got 5 Infiltrators with a Helix Gauntlet on them. So the first save that's failed by the squad can just go down to 0 damage, like it didn't even happen, which is quite nice. He's got 2 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts, which each cost a CP to take because they're Relic Contemptors. And both of them have got 2 Twin Volkite Culverins. Now that's a lot of firepower. 16 shots. Hitting on 3s. Now you can see why he wants the reroll 1s in that many shots. And then Strength 6. And it does mortal wounds on 6s to wound. So now you can see why he wants the reroll 1s to wound off the Lieutenant as well. Then he's got 2 individual Cyborgs as his 2 fast attack choices. Other than that, he's got a Space Wolves Vanguard detachment because Space Wolves love elites. He's got a Librarian in Phobos armor with Murderous Hurricane and Stormcaller, both key powers. He's got a Primaris Chaplain on a bike who is the Wise Orator, so he can get his litanies off on 2+ and he can do 2 litanies. He's got the Canticle of Hate for +2-inch charge and +3 inches to pile-ins and consolidations. And then he's got the Mantra of Strength, which makes him an absolute beast in combat. And on top of that, he's given him the Benediction of Fury Red. Man, David has absolutely tooled up these characters. He's got the Benediction of Fury, which is a flat 3 damage Crozius. As soon as he gets his Mantra of Strength off, it's like flat 4 damage. And you've got to remember as well, he does double exploding 6s. So he could, with his 5 or 6 attacks, he could end up getting 9 or 10 hits. Whew. Whew. Then on top of that, he's got a Redemptor Dreadnought with 2 Stormbolters, the Icarus Rocket Pod, a Macroplasma Incinerator because that's just a no-brainer, and an Onslaught Gatling Cannon. So this guy packs a hell of a punch, and he's not that expensive. He's like 180 points or something like that. And he's core as well, so he benefits from the Captain and the Lieutenant too. Then we've got 3 units of Wolf Guard. We've got 2 units of 5 Wolf Guard and 1 unit of 7 Wolf Guard to go into the things that the 5 maybe just about can't kill. They've all got Storm Shields and Lightning Claws. All 17 of these Wolf Guard have got Jump Pack, Storm Shields and Lightning Claws because they're the best way to take Space Wolf Wolf Guard. Then on top of that, there is 2 units of 5 Blade Guard veterans. Now, this is some staying power. They will not go down easily. And of course, you've got things like transhuman physiology to keep them alive that little bit longer. And of course, there is another Cyberwolf here. So you've got 3 Cyberwolves, 3 units of 1 Cyberwolf, very sneakily added into the army. Now, I'm not going to tell you why they're there and how this is all working. Just a quick run through here of the army list. David's about to come on and tell you exactly how the list works.
Okay, so the way my army works is very interesting. It's a really small mobile gun line with a massive combat support, or the other way around, whatever you prefer. The way I play them usually is I try to null deploy, so they don't get shot, because I have only 4 CPs when I start. Even if I go first, I cannot really afford to do Cloak by the Storm or anything. And Stormcaller only, you know, loads of units ignore cover, or AP is so big it doesn't really matter. And all my units have invulnerable. I don't really care for armor saves that much. So I try to hide them. And my Wolf Guard, I don't really put anything in Deep Strike unless I need to get into something in the back, and I usually do it with my 7-man unit of Wolf Guard, or 5-man if I need +1 to hit, because +1 to wound, sorry, because +1 to wound only costs 1 CP on a 5-man unit, but costs 2 CPs on anything larger. So the larger unit is usually there to clear chaff, but if I have to hit something really hard, I use the 5-man units. Because of double explosions, it's just the amount of attacks between 5 and 7 is not that big, surprisingly. I move my units usually forward, try to keep them hidden for 2 turns, and try to get a cheeky charge off with my Chapter Master, because he's got a Hunter Warlord trait. When I make a charge, at the end of that phase, everyone else can advance and charge around me. So I try to charge and keep him protected, so that turn 2, 3 onwards, I'm a massive threat, because I make it up one side of the board, making it Hammer and Anvil, and then create a massive threat range from the corner of my opponent's deployment, really, and move everything else slowly with my Dreadnoughts, creating firing angles. Because if I create a firing angle there and you have to hide from it, I'll probably be in the charge range with my other units, and if you move everything away into the corner to be safe, I'm gonna win on the mission. And that's how basically all my games went, is I either won on primary and secondary, or just tabled my opponent, or got shot off the board, which did happen. But that's all about positioning. You have to be very careful, because combat armies are very hard to play. If you misplace one of the units and you use a key unit when they haven't done anything, it's basically game over unless your opponent also misplays afterwards. So it's very tricky. The key elements to the list are +1 to wound stratagem, which is Savage Strike, I think. Because my characters are very tough, but I don't really want to... very strong and tough, but I don't want to shoot them off and be one-hit wonders. So I use my 5 Wolf Guard veterans to go in and hit something on force that's really tough, with rerolls to wound and rerolls to hit from Chapter Master rerolls. Because I can select one unit and just send them off, or I can keep it on the Chapter Master and hit something hard, depending on what I want to do. My ranged threat is synergizing very, very well, because the Contemptor Dreadnoughts have 45-inch range and they move 8 inches, and they're very small. On the small bases, I can hide them behind a wall and then peek out and shoot a threat. And if someone wants to come out and shoot me back, I've got 5-up invuln, and all my Wolf Guard already advanced forward, so they're gonna be threatening him as soon as he attacks me. And then my Blade Guard, they're very tough, but I don't really fancy sending them forward. I've got 4 CPs when I start, and it costs me 1 CP to transhuman if they get targeted, so I try to avoid them being shot at all. Their mission is usually to, when I take Raise the Banners, because that's very good for me because no one wants to come towards me, I take banners my deployment and they place them down along with my characters, and then they move out the turn after, advancing and hiding in the ruins or somewhere, not getting shot. And the plan is, my front line, so all my jump packs go in, smash into enemy lines and fight them. With Fight Last, I can actually wrap something, stay in combat, and then in my opponent's turn, normally they would, in my turn when they're wrapped, my opponents will be choosing to fight first, but I'm able to make him fight last and kill him, so I don't really get hit back too much. And by the time he clears me off, because, you know, I've only got 5-man units, and they're tough, but they're gonna get cleared off against competitive armies, my Blade Guard is already halfway up the board, and my Wolf Lord made the charge already, so he's probably somewhere alive, hidden and screened. So all I do is I advance my Blade Guard turn 2 or turn 3, and they're in my opponent's deployment, and they can still advance and clear the enemy army. So I force people to hide in corners or face me head on. But whoever faces me head on usually loses out because I've got Murderous Hurricane to make someone fight last, and Armor of Rust to make someone else fight last. I don't really have enough CPs to interrupt unless I'm very, very careful with spending them. So 2 fight last allowed me to only take a hit from one of the units I multi-charge, because I have to multi-charge with that composition. And I found that every time I went into combat, even against the Blood Angels army that had more units that fought me, I won out, because everything has invuln, so it's not dying easily. And it's just the amount of attacks with double exploding sixes is huge. The one very important thing is that the Successor chapter works a bit different than the Space Wolves. So all my buffs I only get if I charge. It doesn't matter if I heroically intervene or get charged, I have to charge. So it's key that I position myself, that I don't get hit first. So going second helps a lot, because my opponent has to move forward to play the mission, and that allows me to position against him. And if I make the charge, I do a lot of damage. But if I don't, it like instantly I lose all the benefits of the pure Space Wolves army, and I lose my Successor chapter benefits. So you have to be very careful with positioning your units. My Librarian is there basically to assure me the fight last. And if I need to, if there's very bad secondaries, like one of the tournaments I went to, the last one, I couldn't take Codex secondaries. So I had to take the rulebook secondaries, and if you're ever in that situation, Psychic Ritual is a good option, because you just have to hide him or screen him for 3 turns, and he gets you 12 points, which did happen to come into play and is very useful. And I get the deny against the key power, like if someone comes in with a null zone, I don't have to spend a CP to try and deny. It just helps a lot to have him there. But he's not key, he's just there to help me do multi-charges. Then I've got 3 Cyber Wolves, and I have them in every army. Whenever Mani use them, I realized how annoying they are to deal with. They're super easy to hide. They move 10, they can advance, they can charge, they can fall back and charge. They can pile in, I think, 4 inches, because they've got the Hunter keyword or whatever it is, the keyword, the specific keyword. And they just run off, do engage on the fronts for me. Or they go on the objective and they keep it there, or they screen a corner for me. Or they advance and charge unit like Hive Guard, so they have to kill him, because he's got 2 wounds and 4 up save. He's actually pretty survivable. And it's 15 points, so even if he doesn't do anything, if he fails a charge or just dies in the middle of the open, I don't really care too much, because it's 15 points, and people care about them and commit into them. And 2 of the characters I tooled up, I decided that I need a strong punch, because I've got Lightning Claws. I didn't quite realize how much punch they actually pack, but I was like, just in case I need to get somewhere and kill something big, I want to have 2 characters, and I don't want to sacrifice my Wolf Lord that makes me obsec, because he's got Rise of War. So my Chaplain, if his litanies go off, will get 4 rerolls to hit, because he will give it himself with the litany, and then he will get a +1 to damage and +1 attack, +1 strength, sorry. And he goes in with strength 7, hits something with double exploding 6s. Basically I hit on 2s, so I roll all my dice. If I don't get 6s, I reroll them no matter what it is, because on average, even if I roll a 1 and I roll a 6 somewhere else, I gain attacks. So I just go in, and from 5 attacks I usually do like 9 hits, and it's enough. It's with Benediction of Fury it becomes -3, but it's still pretty good, because most of the things that I need to kill have invuln. So as long as I get them to the 5 up or a 4 up that they have, every wound that goes through, and if I roll a 6, it's additional mortal wound on top, it's huge. So basically all I do is I move my Dreadnoughts around, and then send my units in waves that have to be dealt with, and that usually buys me enough time to win the game on the mission.
So David's just walked you through how the list works. Now let's have a look how we can tackle some of these units that he's talking about. The first thing I want to say is this list hates units that can reduce damage. So that's probably like one of the best ways of going into this, is incorporating some sort of units in your army which reduce damage. And you know, that's not specifically just for this list either, like tackling this list. The meta right now has got a lot of units that have got weapons which are either flat 3 damage or flat 2 damage, whether it be Relic Contemptors, which have got flat 2 damage shooting, Blade Guard, which are flat 2 damage in combat, this Redemptor that's got a flat 3 damage plasma, you know, Incubi that are flat 2 damage in combat, Hellions are flat 2 damage in combat. Like, all of these like meta units are all like flat 3 or flat 2 damage. And so if you can incorporate something in your army in general that can reduce the damage of weapons by like 1, it will really annoy armies like this. Like, for example, imagine Death Guard. So you play Death Guard into this. You're going to be comfortable for quite a bit of it because all these 2 damage attacks off these Blade Guard, when they get into things like your Terminators, your Blight Lords, they'll become 1 damage. And when you've got 3 wounds each with a 4-up invulnerable, you're not really going to go down, and you will toast them back. And it's the same with these Relic Contemptors. They've got no AP, so you're going to have 2-up save. And then everything that goes through is only 1 damage. Normally it's 2 damage, but it's only 1 damage. So I think units or armies that can reduce damage by 1 are big. I mean, imagine the Lord of Change, the really hard Lord of Change to kill with the Impossible Robe for a 3-up invulnerable save. And then he's got the Aura of Mutability for a 6-up Feel No Pain. And everyone he passes, he regains a wound back that he's lost earlier on. So imagine that guy going into something like this. Those Contemptors would not even touch the sides. They wouldn't even touch him because they wounded him on 5s. And then he's got a 3-up invulnerable. Then everything that goes through turns to 1 damage. Then he has a 6-up Feel No Pain. He's just not going to go down. And then even the things like the Lightning Claws. So because you've got the invulnerable save on that guy, he's just going to hold in combat. So I think something that can reduce damage would be amazing into this army. Next thing is Mortal Wounds. This army does not like Mortal Wounds being put into it. It's all elite. Like if you look at the things he's got Blade Guard in there. He's got Dreadnoughts in there who doesn't really want to give up. There's Wolf Guard there. There's these important characters. Like the only chaff is basically 3 units of 1 Cyberwolf. Like if you've got multiple smites in your army, this force will not like that, and you'll be able to like crumble a flank or something quite reliably if you can put 4 or 5 smites into something, and it's really gonna hurt here, like really gonna hurt. The thing is, as well, one thing is a fast-moving obsec is not really going to work against this. So this is one thing I always talk about, right? And every time not every time, but in most cases, I'm like, fast-moving obsec can put a big dent in what this army wants to do, because it can go this way and it can steal an objective, stop their primaries and things like that. But in this case specifically, fast-moving obsec isn't really going to help you that much unless you've got a massive abundance of it. If you can afford to tank a few units, then it's fine. Because the one thing is, David does have a stratagem in the Space Wolf book where for 1 CP, 1 unit in his army can hurriedly intervene up to 6 inches, any 1 unit in his army. So you got to imagine, like these things like these Blade Guard are going to be sitting behind ruins on objective markers. And if they're on an objective, if they're within 3 of an objective, even if you're within 3 of the other side of that objective, they'll be able to hurriedly intervene you. So, because they'll be like 2 inches away from the objective or something. They'll be on it like that, or 1 inch away, depending on where these ruins are and stuff. They can be hidden holding objectives. And then you come and try and take it off them with fast-moving obsec. They'll hurriedly intervene into you for 6 inches for 1 CP. Absolutely butcher your squad. You've lost a unit for no reason. They've still gained their primaries, and then in their turn, they can jump back behind the wall. So for that reason, that's one thing not to rely on, guys. Fast-moving obsec, that's a trick to watch out for if you're taking fast-moving obsec to deal with this army. Another thing is combat counterpunch is very important. Like, very important. This army is going to get to you, and it's going to get to you very quickly. So once it's there, you need something that's going to push back at it, not just with shooting. Like, it's okay being able to fall back and stuff like that, and then getting 1 or 2 other units in your army to shoot into them. But that can be unreliable. These guys, once they've charged you, they could consolidate onto ruins and have 1+ armor saves with all the storm shields in this army. And, it can be an absolute pain to get through with just shooting alone. So just having a decent counterpunch unit, say, in your army, 1 or 2, it can really turn the pressure up on this army. Because if you've got guns, like a lot of guns, something like this comes into you and tags something, you fall back, you shoot a couple of units into them and weaken them, then hit them with a counterpunch. It doesn't even have to be a big counterpunch, just something that's half decent, sort of like 5 Vanguard veterans of your own, something like that. Infiltrators, if you're taking AdMech, not uber units that are going to kill an Imperial Knight, but a unit that can kill like 3 Wolf Guard, 2 Wolf Guard, 3 Wolf Guard, something like that. So the idea is once you've shot into them a little bit and you've depleted that unit, then you go into them with your counterpunch unit and pick up the last 2 or 3. And that's very important, I would say. It's a great way of dealing with this army. And the final thing I want to say is out of line of sight shooting. Now, in a similar way to we were saying there's not much chaff in this army, well, for that reason, I'm assuming David wants to move his dreadnoughts around as like a bit of a clump so they go to exactly where they're needed. That might not necessarily be on an objective or playing the mission or something, just where they're needed to deal some long-range damage. And then the Wolf Guard are going to be concentrating on getting themselves into places which are decent on the battlefield so that they can jump out from where they are and pose a big threat. So they might not necessarily be playing the mission. Now, units that will be playing the mission are like Blade Guard. They'll be sitting on objectives, playing the mission and stuff like that, but there's only 2 units of them. And then the Cyborgs. So these Cyborgs are going to be running around either doing things like engage on all fronts or getting objectives for stranglehold and stuff like that. And, you know, if one survives behind a wall on an objective, it gets you 5 extra primary points. So they can be a real pain to deal with. But if you've got out of line of sight shooting, you'll be able to drop cyborgs like no one's business. And if you get rid of those, if you manage to get rid of those 3 one-man units of cyborgs, it turns the pressure on David then, because he's then got to think, damn, which units in my army now, instead of going for the opponent, need to start playing the mission. And then when you start chipping away at those units as well out of line of sight, it becomes very, very hard. So I would say that is probably one of the best ways of tackling this army, is by adding in some decent out of line of sight shooting in your army. So that's how all the different ways that we could tackle this army. There's quite a few there, and you know, like I say, this isn't easy to tackle by any means. What we've gone through there is a few ways that you can look at reducing the score of this army while upping your own score, and how we can beat back at it because it's such a fast pressure list. Modifications to this army, guys. So there's only really 2 things that I would do here because it's a very, very competitive list as it is. Personally, I would drop the Blade Guard because I think the Wolf Guard are insane. The Wolf Guard are incredible. They do the job perfectly. I think the Blade Guard are slight overkill in this list. And I think they're not really fast enough to be doing what they need to do, which is like going forward, holding objectives, and then smacking stuff like the Wolf Guard. They're not really fast enough to get there quick enough. So I don't think that they're like the optimal choice for this army. Now, I know David said he did really well with them. So, you know, if you want to use Blade Guard, feel free. But these are like just some alternatives I'm offering here. So the first thing I would do is I would drop the 2 units of Blade Guard. And for dropping them, because the Blade Guard units are 175 points, but for 150, you can get a Contemptor with twin Volkite Culverins. So what I would do is I would drop one of the units and take a second Redemptor, and I would drop the other unit of Blade Guard to get a 3rd Contemptor. So I would have 2 Redemptors in my army and 3 Contemptors. Because if you're going to go into vehicles, I think you need to go heavy into vehicles. You either need to not go vehicles at all or go heavy into vehicles, because it offsets matchups. It skews different matchups. So I think that's a great thing to do. And it gives you more firepower. And there's still combat punch. You've gained a 2nd Redemptor. So I would definitely do that. And then the other thing is I would drop 2 Wolf Guard. So you got to remember as well, the one Redemptor is basically a set straight swap for a unit of Blade Guard, but the other one, you've still got 25 points left over. Now, you've got 25 points, and you've got 3 units of Wolf Guard, but you've got 557. Now, I don't think you need that 7-man unit. I think 555 is good enough. I think they're good enough as a 555-man units, so you can drop those 2 extra Wolf Guard, and that will give you 56 points. Now, you've got 25 more, so you've actually got 81 points. And I would use those points to get like 2 units of Fenrisian wolves in. So you've got 3 units of 1 Cyberwolf. And then I would spend those points to get 2 units of 5 Fenrisian wolves in as well. Because similarly, they can walk through walls because they're beasts. And they can go and hold objectives for you. But it's even more chaff units then in your army that you're not really worried about. They offer you some screening options against deep strike assault armies. And also on top of that, this outer line of sight shooting we're talking about, they've all of a sudden got 2 more units they need to clear before they can start going for the juicy stuff in your army. So those are definitely the changes that I would make. Right, guys, so that is David's Space Wolf Army roster review. That's his tournament list how it works, how you can tackle it if you come across it and what to watch out for, and if you play Space Orbs, how you can modify it to make it slightly suit your playstyle. I hope you've really enjoyed this video. If you've watched this far and you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and notifications bell in the corner over there so you know each time we release this awesome content. And if you want amazing discounts and, you know, like meta-analysis breakdown content, then head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite for an amazing price. So yeah, guys, I hope you've really enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week with another roster review. Bye.